Welcome to the End of Life Conversations podcast. I'm Reverend Wakil David Matthews.
And I'm the Reverend Mother Ana Luisa Armendariz. In this podcast, we share people's experiences with death and dying, whether it's grief and loss, joy and celebration, all things related to the end of life.
We so enjoy all our insightful and passionate guests who generously tell their stories with compassion and wisdom. So let's get started. Today we are pleased to be able to talk with Jamie Sarche. Jamie's calling is to help people be less afraid of death. By arranging for them to provide their loved ones with a planned and funded funeral or memorial service, she helps them create a path for bereavement long before it's needed. And by facing their mortality, her clients can live better, more meaningful lives.
Jamie is a seasoned speaker who brings deep experience in death care to a broad range of audiences around the country, sharing insights and approaches on how to have those difficult conversations and how to address sensitive issues. Extending well beyond death and dying, her message resonates across industries and individuals, bridging her passion to demystify death while enlightening communicators on overcoming challenging conversations. Welcome, Jamie.
Hey,
Thanks so much
Jamie.
for having me. It's such a pleasure to be with both of you.
Well, so glad to have you here this morning or afternoon, I guess, for you all, close to it. And we always like to start with this question as when did you first become aware of death?
You know, I think I've kind of always been pretty aware, maybe even as a small child, but I remember my first experience with someone I love dying was a woman who was basically a nanny to my brother and me. Her name was Lou, and she died when I was in fourth grade. And I can still really picture her funeral, and I don't have a lot of childhood memories, but that is one of them. I can picture her dress. I can picture her in an open casket. So I was very aware from a very, very young age. Sometimes I just feel like I came in with this connection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's true of Ana Luisa
Most
and
of
I
us.
as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you step into this world and you have that thread already woven into your being.
Mm-hmm.
So how has death impacted the story of your life and your worldviews?
Deeply.
Mm-hmm.
Deeply. I've always been somebody who likes to talk about hard things.
Mm-hmm.
I like to push up against taboos. I don't believe that there are things that shouldn't be talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And so always I was doing those kinds of things. I was an AIDS educator in the early 80s when I was in college. In high school, I was a peer counselor. I was the person who, if people had a problem, they brought it to me because they knew that I had a real sense of agency and I would help them figure out what to do if they were worried that they had, a sexually transmitted infection or they were worried that they were pregnant. I was the person that they turned to. And I think that they understood I wasn't going to have judgment for them. And I was really just going to help them figure out what they needed. And when I was 26, that showed up for me in a real big way. I had an incredibly close friend who I had known since ninth grade and whose husband I've been friends with since we were 4. Her name is Michelle. She got a glioblastoma, which is a terminal brain tumor. It is the one that killed John McCain. Ted Kennedy had it. I've known way too many people with this, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And it is a terrible, terrible disease that is not possible to survive. However, when Michelle got diagnosed and throughout her illness, everybody approached it the way most of us do. And they said to her, you're young and you're strong and you can beat them. And I didn't do that. I'm not sure exactly where the words came from, but I just, showed up in a way to say, I can be here with you in all of this, and I'm not going to tell you it's going to be okay. And you don't have to tell me it's going to be okay.
So
It's
important.
not going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And quite honestly, aside from her minister, I'm not sure she had those conversations with anybody else because
Right.
everybody was afraid to acknowledge the truth because they thought it would make her feel worse. And she didn't want to acknowledge the truth with them because she worried it would make them feel worse. And I'm just not a believer in that. I'm not sure we can make people feel worse. I just want to give them space to feel what they feel
Yeah.
Right.
and to be able to say it out loud.
Or actually just hold space for that possibility, right? The mystery of the unknown, rather than having this language about you're going to be okay, you're going to overcome this. It's like, I hope you overcome this. And if you don't, I love you. And, I'm with you all the way.
Mhm.
So there has to be, people tend to be like black or white about the possibilities. It's like, but we have a lot of options.
Well, in this case, the possibilities were not good.
Yeah.
Right.
What I wanted for her was for her to be able to share her feelings and her fears.
Yeah.
And that was really important. And it really worked well for me. I hope it worked well for her. But I know for me, the fact that we talked about all kinds of things, she had a child who was 10 months at the time of her diagnosis. I had a 2.5-year-old. And we talked about what it would feel like not to know she wasn't going to raise that kid.
Yeah.
And actually that child, Max, got married last March and I got to be at that wedding. And it just
Oh,
was
wow.
very, very powerful to be able to give her space to talk about all this. And for me to just be able to just allow her to share. You can't do that with everybody because she wanted to. A lot of
Right.
people don't want to go there, and that when somebody is
Right.
in it, you got to go where they want to go. But it worked really beautifully, and it allows me to live with her death with a lot more grace. She's been gone now, I think, 26 years. Yet she really sits on my left shoulder. I don't know why it's left, but that's where she is. And she really brings me into this work, I believe, because I didn't start doing this until I was 40, and she died when I was 28. And so I am very sure that she guided me to this work, and she's very, very present in my life because of this work. And I talk
Nice.
about her
So
with so much
beautiful.
regularity, and that is a beautiful thing for me.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. It reminds, we talk about a lot of these things a lot here. And we had a conversation on a video that we did, Luis and I did, about the kinds of things that are appropriate and useful and helpful to be with people who are grieving and whatever their grief is. And on the other side, what's not. And often what's not, it seems like, is about paying more attention to your own needs instead of the needs of the people who are there. And that example you just gave is just really being present and really soliciting and opening to what that person truly needed from you at the time.
And it's
What a
scary.
great story.
It's scary
Yeah.
because we don't have practice in this, and it is very hard. It's very uncomfortable. It's very, we're all sort of certain that there are some magic words that are going to make this all better. And
Right.
the truth of the matter is, I can't make it, just like I said, I can't make it worse. I don't think I can really make it better. I certainly couldn't take away what she was living with. But
Right.
that whole idea of what we do with that language, like the whole idea of like fighting our illness, which we do a lot. Our community talks about that a lot, of like, so-and-so fought valiantly and then ultimately succumbed to their disease. And that whole thing, I cannot stand that. I just think, first of all, why are we putting somebody at war with their own body and what's happening to them? And it really often, like in a scenario with Michelle, it set her up to fail. She can't win. She can't win. And she's just ultimately, her body's going to do what her body's going to do. And so, I just wish that we could allow people to have different language around that and
Right.
just be with them on that journey without saying what that journey exactly
Because we
is
don't
going
know.
to look like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I love what you just said. It just made me think that we treat death as an enemy, and
Mhm.
actually
a
death is
failure.
not, and that it's not an enemy, and it's not a
No.
failure.
Mhm.
It's a friend in a way.
Mhm.
It's that chance to rejoin the planet or
Right.
whatever. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
amazing
and
to think of it
sometimes
that
it's
way.
really tragic. You know,
Yeah.
Michelle's death
Oh
at
yeah.
28 years old,
Mhm.
that's tragic. But last
Mhm.
week, my aunt died at 86 after many years of dementia. That's not tragic.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's right.
Mhm.
But it's
Yeah.
not a tragedy.
Right.
Exactly. Very well said. Thank you so much for that. That's really, really well put.
Thank you.
And that really leads well to kind of having you tell us more about your current role, your current work. So you could talk
Yeah,
about
thank
that a
you.
bit.
Yeah, my pleasure. So what I do is help people to put their own funeral, memorial service plans in place. I help them figure out what method of disposition is right for them. And in Colorado, we have a lot of methods. You have them in Seattle as well, which is really cool. We're really on the forefront of this.
Yeah.
That there are many, many choices. One being traditional burial, which would mean, embalming and likely burying in a metal casket. Not a great choice from the earth's perspective, but maybe a reason to have it. Or green burial, which is burying without embalming and with a biodegradable container, maybe no container, although I have some real feelings about that. But it actually is beneficial for the earth, and
Yeah.
we're getting tucked into the earth. One of
Oh,
my
like it.
mentors, Thomas Lynch, talks about the importance of taking our person from where they are to where they need to be, and tucking them in really helps us in our bereavement too, to go along
Beautiful.
the path.
Yeah.
And that really is a sustainable method. It actually is exactly what people have been doing for millennia. And everything that grows comes from something dead. So
Exactly.
that green method is really a good choice. There's, of course, fire cremation, but most people have no idea how detrimental that is to the earth, and truly what a brutal process it is to the body. A lot of people will tell me, I don't want to be in a box, but I don't think they ever give any thought to what is it like to be in a fire. And some cultures, that's what they need to do, and I honor that. But if your culture, if you don't come from a culture that's what needs to happen, I just think it's incredibly important to talk about it. Does it match your values? There is, of course, cremation by water, which is a newer method. And instead of fire being used to burn away all the tissue, it is an alkali that's similar to liquid soap. And in the method that we use, it takes only 12 gallons of water, and it's really a beneficial situation. And then you still get what we would call ash. In a fire cremation scenario, the cremated remains, the ash, are going to be, they have no nutritional value anymore because of the burning. And also they're filled with gas. So they actually can be toxic to plants, and they're not a great choice. In the water cremation scenario, it really is a fertilizer. So that's really a great choice. And then in Colorado and in Washington and a few other states, there's natural organic reduction. Some people are calling that terramation now, body composting, where instead of composting in the ground, like in a green burial scenario, it's in a box outside of the earth. And in a couple of months, everything has turned to soil. And that method is, again, a really beneficial one for the earth. And you could have as much of that soil as you want. There's nothing human about it at the end, but you could use that in your backyard garden if you want, or it can get donated for land restoration. So what I do is I sit with people and talk through all these methods, what's best for you. And then we talk about the importance of ritual around that. Many of us, because we have become much more secular, we've stepped away from religion. We also have stepped away from ritual.
So
And
true.
ritual has so much value just from itself. I always ask when I do a speaking engagement, I always ask the audience if they understand why or know why we wear a cap and gown at a graduation. Did the two of you know?
No, I don't think
Well,
so.
the cap is like you cross the threshold, right? You have to move a
I
little
don't know, but
thing.
but do you know why everybody has always done that? I mean, we have some ritual around it for sure.
Right.
I don't know why we do it either, but we just do. And that's how we know where we are. And it helps us know how to feel. And it gives us a path to walk on. Like Ana Luisa, you said about crossing the threshold. Death is also crossing a threshold. Certainly for the dead person. And for the people who care about that person. And we need a path to walk on. And ritual is what gives us that path.
So sweet. Yeah, what a perfect way of putting it.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little more about the different ways that you do? I mean, does it includes both disposition, but you also said memorial service.
Talk about where's the service going to be? Who's the officiant at that service? Should there be a newspaper notice? Do you want your family driven to the service? All kinds of stuff. Some people might share, and I want this song, and I want this poem, and I want this, that, and the other thing. That's great. I'm happy to put that in the file. I even have a client who is a surgeon, and I'm certain he really plans his whole life. And every couple of years, he gives me it's really a script for what's going to happen. And Joe's going to walk up the left side of the aisle, and he's going to do this. And as he's coming back the right side, Joanne is going to come up and she's going to say this. And that is what feels right to him. And every couple of years, he gives me a new thumb drive with different pictures. And that's an unusual scenario.
Amazing.
Most people don't plan that much, but that's what feels right to him. And so I meet people exactly where they are and give them what their needs are. And I do suggest to them that anything they want to make sure happens at whatever the service is, then I have it in my file because I'm going to know where it is. If you give it to your kid or your friend or whatever, they're going to put it in a very important place.
And forget.
They might not remember.
I still do that. Oh, that's true.
Oh, that's great. That's really, really funny. That's so
Although if they have the knock box, you could put it in there.
Yeah, there's that, right? Yeah. Great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where all the socks are, right? It's that same place.
I know.
Those get there on their own. I put the things in the important place, and then I don't know what that important place is. My mom has, I'm so grateful to her for this. My mom has what she refers to as her kaput file. We were talking about a little Yiddish earlier. Kaput file is a red folder in her hanging file drawer, and she can just drop things in there, and so I'll know where it is.
Yeah.
The one thing that's hilarious, though, she refuses to put the key for her safe deposit box in there. That's got to go in the kitchen.
Okay.
What? Yeah.
As long as you know.
As long as you know. Although I was just with my father last week, and we had this. He was in surgery, and when we ended up spending time talking about death and dying, and I said, Dad, I really want to get this knockbox because what he's been doing is puts everything in his briefcase, but every time he travels, he hides the briefcase somewhere else. So, because he's like, I'm afraid, like, when I'm out of the house, like, somebody will break in and it'll take my briefcase with everything in it. And so I was like,
oh, dear.
Dad, we have to, like, figure out a safe place for that little box of yours.
Does he live locally?
He lives in Fort Collins.
Maybe he could bring it to your house on the way to the airport.
That's what I recommended to him. I said, you know what? From now on, that he just transferred over to me, and we will just figure it out.
Because you're the one who will need it if, God forbid, anything happens.
Right. So it was just, but it was funny because we were going through it and we're talking about, for some reason, he just decided he was going to start literally telling me about all these things to do. And I'm like, Dad, first of all, I'm tired. I'm just lying here on the floor of, he's recovering. And I don't have my notebook. I don't, no, it's not the time. Hold the thought, Dad. Hold the thought.
That's when the voice memos are a good idea.
That's true. In that moment, I was just I had set up a little sleeping pad next to his bed, and I was just like, oh, I'm so tired. And but I love that my dad has actually spent a lot of my life always reminding me that that briefcase exists.
Yeah.
So, so he's been on it for a long time.
Mm.
So aside from kaput files and briefcases that are always on the go, what are other challenges that you find in this gift that you're offering people?
I think that
what's hard?
The biggest challenge that I'm facing is just our society's inability to talk about death.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started doing this work, and this is already 15 and a half years ago, I thought, how am I going to talk to people about this stuff? Because if I do, they're going to think they're going to die.
Right.
And it really was, I'm not kidding,
Yeah.
2 or 3 years before I thought, well, I do think they're going to die. And I'm right. They're going to die. It's not my doing that they're going to die. This is the natural state of life.
Right.
We're all terminal. Some of us
Right.
might know more about timing or method, but we're all terminal. So I just started to embrace the fact that that's okay. I don't make anything happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I just know that it's going to happen. And so that is really the challenge that I face, is people being like, oh, no, I'm not going to talk about this. But it seems to be shifting a little bit. It really, for years, I've always asked people, what brings you to talk about this today? And for many years, people would say, well, I'm old, or God forbid, I got a diagnosis, or my sister died. But now what I'm hearing is, oh, we were talking about it in my book club. The guys I play poker with said, I need to be doing this. So now it really feels like my goal of helping people be less afraid of talking about death is actually coming to fruition, where it's starting to become more normalized to have these conversations, and to just recognize, just like we were talking about earlier, death is not a failure.
You're right.
It is the ultimate goal of our life.
Right. Yeah.
And if we could embrace that, we could have a much more beautiful death, and B, have a much more meaningful life.
Yes.
Because
yes.
Recognizing that it will someday end informs how we live.
Exactly. Yeah. We had a guest on from Europe, actually, who was a scientist working on extending life, who had decided that was a really bad idea. And just basically for the reasons you're saying, is that part of what death gives us, the gift that death gives us, is the living, to remember to live each day. And he had a lot of other good reasons too. But
that's interesting. I need to go back and listen to that one, because that's what I see a lot of people being like, well, I don't want to die. That sounds just horrifying. And, I hope it won't be painful. We can make sure. Well, we can't always make sure, but we can do our best to deal with pain. But the idea of it, it's not so terrible.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's great. I love that. It's the acceptance of what is. Yeah. I'm great.
My kids get a little irritated because I'm always like, I could just die. It's okay. I can just let me go, right? And they're like, you're always so death forward. And I'm like, well, why not?
I am also death forward. I am very death forward. In fact, I mentioned that my aunt just died of dementia, and my grandmother also had some kind of dementia, and I do not want.
Right.
And what I don't, first of all, I don't want to get it. But I'm doing my best. I'm trying to learn Spanish. I'm working on it. I do puzzles. I'm doing my best. I eat healthy. I exercise. I do the things. But I don't know. And I don't want to live like that for a long time. Especially, I don't want my family to have to live with me that way. Like my aunt, thank God, if there is a good kind of dementia, she got it. She was loving and kind, much more so than in her previous life, quite honestly. But she was funny. It was fine for her until probably the last 2 months of her life. But it was a long time. And thank God she had long-term care insurance that paid for her. She had things as well. They went as well as they could.
Yeah.
But I don't want my family, I don't have what she has. I don't want my family to spend all that money. I don't want them to spend all that time. I don't want them to kind of feel like I'm not me.
Right.
And so we talk about it a lot, and I kind of have some plans. I have a client who just went to Zurich to use Dignitas to end his life. And his wife was so sweet and like sent me a message because he's my client. So wanted to make sure I knew what was happening. And I think she was a little bit scared to share with me that this was their plan because she didn't know how I would respond. I'm a big proponent of doing whatever is right for you. I love that Colorado has medical aid in dying, although you cannot use it if you are cognitively impaired. So that's why you'd go to Zurich. You know, I just think this idea of we can own some of this.
Yeah, exactly.
We've heard a lot about too, like having agency about the end of life. I mean, we give so much information about birthing and you have choices and you can decide. And yet for another, interstellar birth, we're not allowed to do much, right? Like it's just.
Yeah, we don't have that agency.
Yeah. And it's a much longer time frame, like for birth, maybe you have 2 days and then they're going to get that baby out. That's not true in a death. I mean, my aunt didn't eat for probably 15 or 16 days.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
She was holding on.
Yeah. I just watched a very beautiful movie called My Last Ecstatic Days, which I highly recommend. A young man who had the blastoma chose to film his last couple of weeks of life, and they did a whole documentary on it. It's very beautiful. Right up to the last breath, literally, they had the camera on him when he took his last breath. And he was, I think it was 14 or 15 days without food and water when he finally died. So very, very moving. I also, with the dementia, and I just recently dealt with that too. I had a dear friend who's now in her home, and basically they're very happily sucking $10,000 a month out of her and her family and her, inheritance. And she's not there.
Right.
She's really not there. And I've gone to visit and I've sung to her and I've talked to her, but she's just not even responding anymore. And they do now. I think the University of Washington actually has created this dementia care, advanced care directive that you can fill out if you think you might be possibly dealing with dementia in your life, that you can do before you have dementia, which gives basically, like you're talking about, kind of, this is my agency. This is what I want to have happen if
this is
unable to make that decision myself.
But are they allowing you to use medication to facilitate a death?
I don't know if that's in there. It's called the Dementia Care Directive. I'd have to look and see.
I think they do.
See, I don't think so. I don't think
we
in the
are.
United States that you're allowed to use medication.
I actually think that it is. I remember, Wakil, I got the book from one of our speakers, and I ordered the book, and that's what her mom did. She actually did have an advanced care directive plan, and they did do medical aid in dying. I think it was in Washington, but it was around dementia. They just figured it out. My book is around here, but I do have it. And it is a current book. It's in the last 2 years.
Well, I will definitely look into that. I'm really under the impression that in the United States, you could not do anything to facilitate someone's death if they're cognitively impaired. But I will look into that too.
I'm actually, I'm going to just look at my...
Let's find that book and post it somewhere. Yeah, we'll post it in our podcast notes for sure.
I will let you know.
Well, you could use VSED. I just looked at this. You could use VSED, which means that it's voluntary stopping eating and drinking.
Stopping eating.
Right. Yeah. But they will give you medication to keep. Yeah, that's the VSED handbook. That's what it was.
Okay,
that's a little bit different than what I'm talking about, because medical aid in dying, in the way that I'm talking about it,
it's medication.
More
right.
Like here's a
right.
Couple medicines that are going to end your life in hours.
That's true. Yeah.
Versus this could be 14, 15 days. And yes, you would get some medicine to make it easier on you, but not to actually end your life. It's the not eating and drinking that ends your life.
Well, yeah, it's good that we got that clear, because I was thinking that too. Very good. All right. Well, let's keep going here. And we also like to ask, and this is, I think, really important. What do you need for support? What supports you in this work? What kind of,
Practices.
what could help you feel supported, but also what kind of practices do you have that help you feel supported and continue to stay centered and grounded?
Well, I think for me, I am so very, very lucky in that I have found the work that is my soul's purpose. I don't think that that's very common, that to find that work. And when I learned about this 15 years ago, I knew nothing about funerals. I mean, almost nothing. And I'm not a social worker. I'm not a psychologist. I really have no business doing this job. However, when I heard about it, it was a lightning bolt. And I absolutely knew that this is the role for me. The person who I work with at Feldman Mortuary in Denver never had anybody to do this before. I've created this out of whole cloth. I got no training whatsoever, which actually has been incredibly beneficial to me because most people who are prearranged funeral planners have training and you do it like this, and then you do like this, and then you do like this. And I never did it that way. I really figured out what works for me. And so I show up in an incredibly authentic way.
Yeah.
So the fact that I am absolutely meeting my soul's purpose helps me to feel very good about the work that I do and is really very much a practice. I also will say that I think it's just so meaningful that I can provide safety for people who need to talk about stuff. Like the medical aid in dying law in Colorado came into being because of a man named Charles Selzberg who had ALS. And he called me to ask me about Oregon's law. And at that time, I don't know what the rules are in Oregon now, but in that time, you had to be a resident of Oregon and you had to live there for, 6 months or whatever. And he didn't have that. And he didn't have the capacity to move there. And he didn't want to be here with the ALS for 6 months. And so I was able to introduce him to a state senator, Lois Court, and she brought this legislation. He did not benefit from this legislation. He ultimately stopped eating and drinking, I believe. And that's what facilitated his death. But all of these other people can now benefit because I was there for him when he needed to talk about this. Like it wouldn't have occurred to me to call Lois and to say, hey, we need this. But because I'm a safe person for him to bring this to, I could help him navigate that. And I see that in a lot of other realms. And so that really feeds me. And just being able to support people and to help them know that they're not alone in whatever they're dealing with for 6 minutes feels valuable to me. So it really just, I am a real caregiver by how I'm made. And so to hold up people in that way feeds something for me because I need to show up in that way. That's how I value myself.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So beautiful. Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. But I just guess I'll just circle back with this and just ask if are there times when it just overwhelms you?
Yeah.
Or when you run up against something that's just too hard?
Yeah.
There's people that you can't get past that barrier. And do you have anything that helps with that?
You mean get past that barrier of they're not going to talk about this?
Yeah. Or just that there's a really, really sad, as you said, there's tragedies that happen. Yeah.
I mean, there have been many tragedies that I have been part of. And what I find, I don't want to say this like I'm an emergency responder. I'm not.
Right.
I'm not running into danger in any way. But I do find I am drawn to the emotionally challenging stuff. So one example, this is many, many years ago, there was a young man who I believe was 22 or 23, Andrew, who had been walking home from the light rail in the middle of the night, maybe 2:00 in the morning, and was shot. And he was found on, a corner, and we took care of his body. And I felt very compelled he was cremated, and I felt very compelled to bring his cremated remains and his death certificate and the other things that his family wanted to their home and go through it all with them and share what everything was and how to do things. And so I was in their home for a while. And as I was leaving, his mother, Cindy, hugged me really tight. And she just said, hold your kids. And then I went in my car and I just wept and wept and wept. And then I thought, well, I can't sit outside of their house in this. And not because I can't feel it. I feel very strongly that professionals in these realms need to feel it all the way through. But I did not want in any way for them to feel that they needed to come take care of
you.
And so I drove to the corner and allowed myself to keep crying and allow that out. And I did share it with her after. Like later, I know I talked to her again and shared that experience. And she was like, oh, you should come again. And I was like, no. No. But I think that that's really valuable. I think it's valuable to me. But what I also think is it is valuable to her that she knows I feel this with her. I don't feel sympathy for her. I feel empathy for her. And I think what often happens in a place like that is people blame that person for what happened to them because it's so scary to think, oh, that could also happen to me. And so I'm sure that lots of people have said, in situations like this, well, my kid wouldn't be coming home at 2:00 in the morning, or my kid would take an Uber. And maybe they would be smart enough not to say it to her, but there is that judgment because we don't want to think that we're all vulnerable. And I realize we're all vulnerable.
Yes, absolutely. So true. Wow. Very well put. Thank you.
Yes. So what frightens you about the end of life?
I don't worry so much about the end of life for myself. I feel very confident that this is not the end. There is something else. I feel very confident about that. I have been with people as they die, and you can literally see, I know the two of you have also been with people as they die. You can literally see the light go out of them. And that...
You feel it.
Yeah. And they look a certain way when they're living, and they look completely different when they're dead. And that is, in my tradition, the neshama, the soul. I am certain about that. And so I feel very comfortable with, our loved ones are still with us. I feel closer to my grandparents now than I did when they were living. I know that they are there as my spirit guides. I am quite certain I will be that. So I don't worry about it particularly for myself. But what I do really worry about is what that will be like for the people that I love. And God forbid I die when my children are adults, but they're young adults. I want them to be grown up and have their own families. And, so I don't want them to have to navigate a life without me. Or for my husband to navigate a life without me. I am quite committed to, like I have any control of this, but quite committed to my husband being the one to die first because I'm certain that I will be okay. And I'm not so certain that he will be okay. I don't want that. I don't want to live a life without him, but I worry he would be in a dark room. So those are the things that I worry about. Again, not so much like what would it be like for me, but what will it be like for the people I love?
Yeah. And a lot of the work you're doing is really about supporting the people you love,
That's
giving
right.
them what they need.
That's
Yeah.
right. The fact that I have a funeral plan in place and have had that in place since I was 42, that is literally me holding their hand on that day.
Exactly. Yeah, that's such a great way to put it. Great visual. Yeah, thank you. I think we're pretty much through our questions, so I would like to just leave it with, is there anything you wish we had asked?
No, I really appreciate the fact that you're giving me the opportunity to talk about this stuff. Again, it's so incredibly important because aside from birth, this is the only experience that every one of us is going to have. And if we're lucky enough to love people, we're going to experience their death too. That's one of the things that I think about with grief. You know, we're a very grief denying society too. We're really toxically positive, and we want to save people from their grief. And we want to give them, 2 or 3 days and then get on with it. Let's just get on with it. And I don't think that exists. I want people to feel things all the way through. And I want them to recognize that grief is not linear and it's not a short term. It is a lifetime practice. Grief is really the mirror of love. And we're lucky if we grieve.
Yeah. So true. So true.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And we appreciate you and all the work you're doing. And we will, in the podcast notes, we'll put links to your work and so people can get in touch. And yeah, thanks again so much for being with us today.
Such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, and as always, we like to end with a poem. And Jamie sent us a really beautiful poem. It's called When I Die. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give to them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not on your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. When I Die by Merritt Malloy. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining us on the End of Life Conversations. We appreciate you and look forward to sharing our stories. We encourage you to subscribe to have access to premium episodes and extra resources. Links to our guests and their recommendations and a transcript of this episode will be in the podcast notes.
Yes, thank you so much. And please tell all your friends. Follow us on social media, and again, consider subscribing for some excellent premium content. We want to acknowledge that the music we are using was composed and produced by Charles Heastand. We also want to acknowledge that we live on unceded lands that have been cared for thousands of years by Indigenous peoples who are still here.